Meanwhile, over 1 million people watched on Saturday, which is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, not surprising remotely, but over 1 million people watched on Saturday, and 16 points to 9 was the final result. This was just a phenomenal performance by an Irish team. Brandon Driscoll's on later. We've already put it out on Facebook Live. He certainly was struggling to think of a more complete performance across 80 minutes in the history of Irish rugby, but it's been talked about in that kind of vein.
I don't think it's a massive surprise.
Yeah.
I did tip New Zealand in the paper, and I didn't think without Conor Murray, I thought they would come up a little bit short, and I was wrong. And that's one of the most surprising things about it. But
you were wrong.
No. But look, they've beaten them before. 3 or 4 of the players have beaten them twice.
Didn't that feel like a touch more of an ambush, a slightly strange occasion, a week in Chicago? Even Joe Schmidt was talking.
It didn't at the time. I think we've kind of come to think of that. I think at the time it felt amazing, and I actually preferred Chicago as an event, as an occasion.
Did you?
Strangely enough, even though I think for a lot of people, because it was in Dublin, because it was live on the national broadcaster, all these things add up to it being an even bigger occasion. Yeah. Like Chicago was late at night, but maybe it's because I was I'm lucky enough to have been there in Chicago. I'm lucky enough to have been in Wellington last year. I was
in Chicago, and I would have what happened at the weekend way ahead of Chicago.
They scored 5 tries in Chicago. They played amazing rugby. It was an incredible event, and it was the first time. Saturday was, I think Saturday, I've also seen since Chicago. Chicago was probably a bit more of a surprise from an Irish point of view as well, because the form line hadn't been as good.
Yes.
Whereas the form line now is that this is the level that this team is at. I think that the 40 minutes in the first half in Twickenham was the definitive performance of this era, and this was a continuation of that, but they weren't quite as accurate with the ball, and there is scope for improvement, and that's the scary thing, because we're not used to this. But it was incredible. I'm not trying to take away from it. It was an incredible moment. It will go down as one of the greatest days in Irish rugby, arguably the greatest, and I think to do it there in front of the home fans, the atmosphere was absolutely incredible. Again, another contrast.
Yeah, no,
absolutely came through on TV.
It was like emanating through the TV that the crowd almost were concentrating to an unbelievable extent. Every box kick, every passage of play, they were reacting to accordingly.
That
they
last
weren't missing a thing.
bout of the fields from the crowd, like ordinarily you kind of, it's become part of the furniture almost, that the crowd will sing Fields of Athenry, but there seemed to be an extra purpose towards singing it, that it was louder than I'd ever heard it.
Well,
and it seemed to be in an effort to kind of get that final 3 minutes over the line.
And then John Lacey joins in with a 10, 9, 8 a countdown. If you watch the TV coverage back for no reason, he just like on the side in this Irish accent counting down to 0 as the field rings out, and New Zealand are in 2013-esque kind of wave after wave, and Ireland are defending. It's an incredible piece of sporting theatre, and it is a result that will stand the test of time.
Because I saw a tweet, I think it was from Simon Hick, and I think I almost have the words right, which is not great journalism on either part, but it's jumping at me now, where he said Chicago felt a bit surreal and this more feels believable. And I would take that vein, that ambush is too strong a word, but it just had a unusual quality.
There's so many alien components
that week in Chicago.
New Zealand were better. New Zealand were better on paper this weekend. They were stronger. That was
the other point I was making. So no Retallick and Whitelock. Kano and who was it in the second row?
Patrick Tuilalupo.
Yeah. So that's a different prospect completely. And particularly with the worries about the line out the week before. You looked at the New Zealand team sheet this week, plus the intensity of the build-up, the sense that this was 1v2, that this was a heavyweight bout, that this was a standalone. Admittedly, there's no cup at play or anything at play really, but there was something almost better for it just being a standalone. We're coming at you and you're coming at us, and it's everyone giving their best, and it's all we're thinking about.
Yeah.
As opposed to Chicago, where even Joe Schmidt sort of admitted in the aftermath of this result that Chicago was a bit of a surprise. They only had 2 proper days of build-up, proper training the way he would have liked it, and who knows how well the New Zealand team were preparing. That's always nagged me a little bit about Chicago. Yeah. And I've none of those qualms after what we saw on Saturday.
Certainly Chicago got Ireland got New Zealand's attention in Chicago, and that attention hasn't lifted since. So we saw the fury they came back with the second time 2 weeks later, and then we saw the levels of performance or intensity that they brought to the table this weekend. So yeah, I think the 1v2 thing, certainly the fact that Ireland are now European champions, they're there to be got at, and it doesn't seem to bother them, is a really incredible thing for an Irish team. And I remember sitting down with Joe Schmidt for a one-on-one a long time ago in 2014 when he just took over.
When was the last Joe Schmidt one-on-one in recent times?
They won with Jerry Thornley last year, and but that was in between that there was very few. I don't think he's done any, but he just said, I want Ireland I don't want an underdogs tag. I want Ireland to be comfortable being favourites. I don't get being the underdogs tag. And it's taken him a while, and he probably got to that stage a little bit with the Paul O'Connell team, but then they went back to scratch when he retired and they lost injuries, and through South Africa winning over there, through Chicago, beating England at the last stage of Six Nations to the Grand Slam. He's built and he's built and he's built, and what he's built just looks so strong.
It's a very un-Irish thing to have that level of confidence and that level of surety in your own ability. Like the very foundation of the state is built on a plucky defeat, right? So for an Irish team to go out there and show that they are the best in the world doesn't seem right, but in the best possible way.